Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Build an Iconic Life. I'm here with Tim Bambu, and this is actually our second podcast.
Yeah.
He gave us authorization to go ahead and play the first podcast, but we decided to do round two, and there's a very good reason for it. So stay tuned. We're coming up.
I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands.
Welcome to Build an Iconic Life podcast. I'm your host, Chris Whitehead, and this podcast is dedicated to help you build a life with zero regrets by focusing on how you have everything you need to stand up, stand out, and live life on your terms. Let's dive right in. Tim, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you, Chris?
I'm doing very, very well. Thanks for coming back to our show.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
Yes, sir. So, number one, before we dive into it, what is the name of your company and what is it that you do?
So the name of my company is Driven Digital, and what I really do, it's kind of what I've done, kind of my whole life is take creativity and technology and use both of those to really give a voice to impactful messages.
Okay. And how did you trip upon what you're specifically doing for clients right now?
So that is just like kind of the process of just life, right? Like you kind of just do stuff and you keep doing stuff and you kind of figure out along the way more and more what your real strengths are and what you're really good at.
And so, you and I had a conversation about this over a couple hours actually last week. You've been in technology since about what age?
Forever. So
right.
Yeah, I mean, I've been using computers. Like there's pictures of me like before I can even remember, like at 3 years old, like playing on I don't know if it was a DOS computer or like early Windows computer, like playing a game and just using it.
And did you find refuge in working on the computer? Is that your personality type, your MO?
That's a very good question. I would say yes. Right? Because it's what I know, and it's something that I have just used a lot, like my entire life, right? So it became very familiar to use a computer and be on a computer.
Yeah, I mean, our kids now, we have 20-year-olds getting ready to be 21, an 18-year-old getting ready to be 19, and they constantly have some kind of technology either in their hand or right around them almost all. And my age generation, we kind of started in elementary school with some kind of basic computer that actually hooked up to a television screen, and then we were doing visual basic at a very early age. So we were being introduced to the first real modern computer, but my generation has had a lot of experience without it. And what I've seen happen in the marketplace over the last 20 years is not only has machinery in general become more ubiquitous, but the people that are using them, that are driving technology, they're deeply, deeply seated in it. And I think you're one of them. And you got your first like star on the map by helping a surgeon, correct?
Yes. Yep.
And what did you help him do?
So basically, he was in practice for 30 years. And, when I got there in 2020, actually. That's a whole nother story. While I actually chose to leave my other job in the middle of the pandemic. But I found him that same week that I was leaving my last job. And what I saw on his listing for a for an employee was he wanted someone to help with the website and with basically a digital presence and digital stuff in the office, like the patient reminder system. He mentioned YouTube and wanting to make videos and grow a YouTube channel. So basically what I saw when I did a little bit of research, when I saw the listing, first of all, I saw he was listed as a hospital and not like a specialist on Google My Business, which is like one of the worst things you can do, right? Because you're not going to come up in any search results when you're searching for that actual specialty. And I saw he had a YouTube channel and it had like, I don't know, 3 or 4 videos on it. But because of who he was, right? And he didn't know technology, but I saw immediately how well of a speaker he was, right? And I knew that YouTube would be a great place for him. So over the next year of working with him, I built a website was the first thing I did, right? So he had like an actual website that was responsive. That was the other thing that happened. He didn't have a responsive website, which means it doesn't work on a cell phone. So, right, going back to technology, what's happening today in the marketplace, if your website doesn't work on a cell phone, you're not going to be in good shape when people are trying to find you. So, did all that kind of foundational work. And then over the next year, we did some YouTube videos when he had time. And eventually those really caught on and just took off because of kind of everything that was built foundationally and because of who he was and how he spoke and him as an expert in the field.
And to date, how many followers roughly does he have on YouTube since you started working with him?
He started with 5. And now he's at, I think it's 530,000 on one channel. And then the second channel has, I think 230 or so about. So, what is that? Like 700 some thousand subscribers.
Yeah. And when you like, I mean, just tell the story, man, like what he hired you for, right? And how much he paid you, which is not insignificant. I mean, it's a good salary. But he's had millions of views on individual videos,
right?
Hundreds of thousands of subscribers,
right?
And the optimization has led to advertising being on his YouTube channel, which is something that happens after you get enough specific gravity. It's something you can do.
Right.
Basically, that money that is made on advertising that YouTube puts on there was enough to pay for your services, correct?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Before I left, actually, by the time I wasn't a full-time employee anymore with him, I had paid every dollar back that he paid me just in YouTube ad revenue.
Yeah, just in ad revenue.
Just in the ad revenue, not even including, any kind of conversions of people actually coming into the office, which honestly, so that's a very good point about YouTube that I think is really important. So many people focus on the ad revenue that you get from the videos, but honestly, that is such a small portion of what actually really matters on the platform, to be really frank. There is so much more value in building that, like, know, and trust factor with your audience and having them convert to actually use your services, right? Rather than just making videos for the ad revenue. I think that's a really big, let's say misconception, but kind of misplaced focus on YouTube and what it's really for, right? Because people have flown in from around the world to see him at this point, right? As a doctor. So, and that's, And that's because of his real mission and message about what he's doing and what he believes in, which is much, much bigger than just worrying about getting monetized and getting
Sure.
ad revenue and everything else, right? So I think that's just a really important point about using the platform itself.
Well, and I think the other point that people often miss, because, we're always teaching people to speak to your niche, speak to your ideal client.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I mean, I've been in business a long time, and if you're not known, you can't sell anything. It doesn't matter if
100%.
people like you. It doesn't matter if people hate you. If they don't know you, nothing is going to occur. And YouTube is one of those places where you can get known if you play the game right. And what that led to, here you have a flagship client, which you were employed by for a while, but you started making a transition. And that transition was born out of the hope of doing what? Like, why did you quit a high paying job, security, to go into the craziness of owning your own business?
Well, it was really for doing more for myself. I felt I had more that I can do for myself and for others, really. I wanted to really build something to make an impact with more than just me in an office with one person, right?
And how long have you been doing that now?
I've been doing that just about when did I leave there? Maybe about 4 or 5 months ago. Not that long.
Okay. So talk about some of the challenges that you've personally run into once you let go of the leash of having security in a steady paycheck.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Here we go. It's a lot different, right? It's you. The biggest thing that you face is all the stuff that you put, like, for me, there's a lot of stuff I kind of really kept deep down inside me that was just not dealt with because of the security of having a job, right? So all that stuff comes boiling out when you don't have that security anymore. And you really have to face yourself and what you're doing rather than doing it for somebody else. That's what I've really found.
And why is it that you kept pushing forward? What's the differentiating factor for you of why, when faced with that kind of trauma or drama, whatever you want to call it, why have you kept pushing forward when so many other people see that and go, that's complete chaos, and run back to security?
That's a good question. Out of the 8 to 10 years where I've worked for other people, I have found that it hasn't been fulfilling for me.
Why?
Because I really haven't done, like, when you leave that security, right? You're really doing so much more for yourself than other people, which to me is very foreign, right? I'm very good at doing stuff for other people, and I'm absolutely terrible at doing it for myself. So I've found that I've had so much more growth personally, because I did personal development and different things by myself, while I was working for other people. But once you actually go out and network and meet other people and work with other people and make connections with other people rather than just being in an office and doing stuff by yourself, it's really a much more rich and fulfilling life.
I agree. And it's also, you start to learn that you don't know a lot of things.
Yes.
And, as you were talking, I was thinking about when I first started at 24 and I, walked out of a job and okay, I own a business. And I remember that first week, Tim, of just sitting there in my basement in a split level house that we rented in North Carolina. And I was like, I got two other people staring back at me and they're like, so what are we doing? And I'm like, I don't know. Let's brainstorm about what we're doing. So I had not only decided to, become an entrepreneur, I decided to wrangle two other people into my dumb idea and had no idea what we were going to do. No idea what we were going to do. And looking back at that now over, the last 25 years, I can go, wow, that was the birthplace of creativity for me because I didn't have a choice. You have income
Right.
coming in, and all of a sudden it stops. And by the way, it wasn't enough income to sustain a family. And then my wife decides to come work with me, and one of my friends decides to come work with me, and we have to go make things happen. And when you've not been educated on how to network, when you've not been educated on even what the trade is that you're doing and what it's really worth, there were some really fun times, Tim, but there was a whole bunch of shenanigans going on, a whole bunch of let's figure it out as we go. And it's not only made my life richer, but the biggest thing that it did is it drove me to a purpose, because most of us will not stay in the pocket of pain. Well, I like that saying, pocket of pain. We will not stay in that pocket of pain without something bigger driving us because of it.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
so in the last 4 or 5 months, what is it that you're finding that's driving you to be willing to do what we like to say are the hard things? What's the things driving you now?
So when you talking about that, has me realizing how much that purpose also is driving me, right? But with me, I'm still not clear on what that purpose is, which I think, there's evolution of what that
Yes.
is,
Yes.
right? So it's still not, 100% like clear yet, but there's a driving force of that purpose, right? Going back to, why I left, there wasn't a bigger purpose there for me personally with what I was doing and who I was working with, right? Which is, a whole nother point. When you run a company, not only do you have to have a purpose for yourself, but you have to have a purpose for your employees.
Yeah.
And you have to have a place for them to go and for them to grow, right? Which is an invaluable lesson for me, especially as a new entrepreneur who has some work experience as an employee, to have that lens and understand that as much as you need a purpose, you need to provide it, and have that purpose and vision and mission for the company for other people to get on board, because you can't do it by yourself, right? If you want to do anything really big, you need other people. Going back to the doctor, 30 years in practice, right? Always done speaking engagements and different things, always been local in his community, very well known in his community and the medical field. But if you want to, move beyond that, you can't just be the best speaker in the world. You're going to need other people on your team to really push and drive you forward, which is something that I'm seeing, a lot of people don't, I don't know if they don't understand that, but they don't utilize that lens of how much bigger something can be. Does that that kind of make sense? Does that kind of resonate?
Well, the way that I hear it is being proficient or even excellent at a skill like public speaking or doing YouTube videos, or building things, right? Like I do. That's a hell of a skill. It's a whole different skill to keep a family together. It's a
Right.
whole different skill to keep a company together. It's a whole different skill to lead people. It's a whole different skill to manage people. And as an entrepreneur, you have to go through every one of those evolutions. You have to be proficient at what you do. You have to have a vision for where you're going. You have to know the people, or at least the avatars, the types of people that you're going to need on your team. You're going to need to know what you can and cannot delegate. Then after you figure all that part out for yourself, where most business owners make a mistake is they just start plugging and playing, right? And that was like your last boss. He's like, hey, can you do this? You're a function, here's money. But what he didn't ask is, hey, Tim, where can we go with this? Because that's not his vision. He's an amazing surgeon. He's an amazing public speaker. He's amazing at doing these videos. That doesn't mean that he's an amazing business person. It means that he's amazing at what he does. And that was what I had to learn. Like, I've always been able to wrangle people along with me, but I didn't know what to tell them to do. And then I expected them to perform at my level at the things I was actually good at, which is quite silly. And then over time, it was plug and play, like you're talking with the doctor. And then I kept going through the revolving door of training people, them getting very, very good at what they did, and then going, well, thanks. I think I'm going to go do my own thing now. And it's like, argh. So then I had to really start focusing on the culture of our company. And that was a level deeper. And then I got to the magic part that you're talking about, which is literally just sitting down with people that I care about and saying, what is it that you want? And how can I help you get what you want? Because if I understand the law of reciprocity, if I help you get what you want, you're going to feel inclined to want to help me get what I want. And so we drive each other to higher and higher heights. And that just wasn't something that was explained very well for many, many years to me, or something that I missed. And it took me 15 or 20 years of doing that to actually start to get something that I know that I can rebuild. If it all crashed to the ground today, Tim, in 6 months, I would easily be at $1 million again, and I would be flying again. But the 20 years that it took me to learn all those lessons is what we want to truncate for people, because we live in a faster society now. And I'm not sure that the market will sustain you being a knucklehead for 20 years. And while you're trying to raise children or get married, raise children, own a house, all those different kinds of things. So the information is out there, but I think people are still really ignorant of it. You just happen to be fortunate enough and to take a leap of faith to go to an event, to listen to other business owners that had been in business a while, and they started asking you these questions even while you still had a job. And I think it's part of what pushed you over the edge. You're like, okay, that's me. I will raise my hand for that. And now you have a group of people, a mastermind, if you will, of support people around you that you can ask questions to, that will continue to push you further, just because they're asking those same questions too, and the collective answers that show up. And it takes a certain kind of person to wake up every day to not receive the goal that you know intrinsically you need to receive in order to keep moving forward, and to also gauge at the end that you have more money at the end of your month than month at the end of your money. Kick it into gear when you have to, negotiate the way you need to have to, build the things for you the way you need to. And here's what's beautiful about it, dude. You said you're really good at doing that for other people, but you're not really good at doing it for yourself. You literally can take your greatest weakness and turn it into your greatest strength, simply because you put yourself in an arena where you must. It's survival. And that's the one thing I love about entrepreneurism. Well, two things. Number one, it's the backbone of our country, and I think it's the backbone of our civilization, is to give small business owners, creative thinkers, the freedom in the arena to expand and create and change things. Number two, it's the only way on earth that I've found, for me personally, where I can dictate where I want to go, how I want to go, with whom I want to go, the speed at which I want to go, and I get immediate feedback as to whether or not what I'm doing works or not.
Definitely.
And because the stakes are so high, we tend to lean in to that personal development side, because we realize we keep repeating the behavior 18 different ways, but it's really a singularity. So let me get to that singularity. Are there any singularities in the last several months that you have bumped your head against and gone, wow, I didn't realize that I was going to have to overcome this in order to push my business forward? Because I think that there are other people on here that are probably considering opening up a business. You could give them some insight about what they could expect.
So personally for me, the biggest thing that has happened is kind of going back to what I was saying, like facing those things that you kind of tuck away. Imposter syndrome and just feeling like you're not good enough has been really one of the things that have stuck out, big time for me, right?
Okay, so
Just
let me get this straight.
yeah.
You put hundreds of thousands of people on a dude's YouTube channel. You open up a business helping people with YouTube, which
Yep.
you obviously have real results in, and
Right.
yet imposter syndrome shows up anyway. Why?
Absolutely.
Why
I think it's happening to me personally is because it's just the way I've let my mind work for my entire life, right? And not even being 100% aware of it, and being able to kind of sit with it and understand that it's not true. Because we all do it, right? We all get in our own head and have thoughts, and there's a point where you have to say, is this really true? Like, am I saying stuff in my head that is actually what's happening, and what really makes sense, right? Does it even make sense? Like you said, right? At 500,000 subscribers, right? Am I really not good at this? Is that really true? Probably not. I probably know a little something or another to get something to work. And you have to be able to understand. I have to be able to understand that you can really build confidence just by being able to sit with those thoughts and just see that they're not true.
So besides sitting with those thoughts, what are some of the other things that have been kind of outside of the box for you that you realize has actually helped with that?
Other people, right?
Okay.
So going back to a mastermind and having other people, and that goes back to what we were talking about before with the first event. I didn't do a lot of networking. I never really worked like all my whole career, right? I've always done stuff like I was the person doing the digital stuff just because I know it, right? All the way, through even in college, right? With the clubs I was with, I just built all the digital stuff. No one really else knew, a lot about what I was doing. And the other jobs I did, I was the one doing the work. As like the whole digital department. So going to that first event and being around other like-minded people that have kind of the same wavelength on different things, right? Like there's 20, 30, 40, 50 people in the room that have all different experiences, all different, life experience, but you are able to get on a similar wavelength and understand your experience and their experience, and how much you have in common, but also how much you can see. Like I saw more of myself talking and being around other people than I could doing the work on my own. Which is really was one of the most significant things that happened going to that first event, right?
If the way that I look at it is, we have a plant out here and it's on a drip feed system, which is the job, and it's going to stay moderately healthy, barring anything outside hitting on it. All of a sudden you
But
pick that,
that's it,
all of a sudden you
well,
pick, huh?
I'll say that's if that it's just going to stay moderately healthy. You keep dripping it.
Yeah. So we decide to pick that plant up and to put it in a burlap sack and sell it on the open marketplace. So we become an entrepreneur, and that plant gets put in someone's yard, and what it needs to really reestablish itself and to start to flourish is some form of fertilizer. And there's only so much that you can get, no offense, by watching YouTube videos. There's only so much you can get by any social media, any forward facing, talking at you kind of experience. When you up your game, and the courage that it takes to do that, by the way, is tremendous. And I know, because I had years of imposter syndrome. But you finally go put yourself in an arena, and maybe the first 2 or 3 times that you do it, you don't find like-minded people. So it's very easy to say, well, this isn't really for me. I'll go back to doing what I'm doing. But when you finally find a tribe of people that are similar to you, that are focused on expansion and growth like you are, what ends up happening is that becomes that fertilizer. And the neat part is like, everybody knows about nitrogen and phosphorus for plants. Not everybody knows when to apply it, though. But the neat thing is that it can be very measured at that point. You can literally start to help someone scale something. So something that took me 20 years to do, I was able to recreate in 6 months. A business, right? Took me 20 years to learn how to do it. Then it went to zero because I let it go. Then I wanted to build it back. And within 6 months, I was right back. 7 months, I was right back to where I had left off. And we're actually flourishing, comparatively speaking, because of the lessons that are learned. That's the nutrients, man. And I've watched you put those nutrients in. I've watched you hold yourself accountable. I've watched you engage in not only just be about me, but actually want to be a meaningful member of the mastermind, where you start getting feedback to other people that are asking questions, and you're giving not only feedback about digital stuff, but just in general thoughts. And that's what a real group of business owners getting together and talking can do, because you never know who has the answer. You never know who's had the experience, but I would rather learn from your experience than have to go create it for myself, because it wastes time and money usually. And time is way more valuable to me than money.
100%.
And
yeah,
that is the goal, is to help you in 2 years do what some of us took 2 decades to do. And that should be the value exchange of you paying your hard-earned money to be a part of something, to get that success. And then the next lessons necessarily start showing up about leadership. So everything that you want to do for yourself, you can actually do inside of a proper group setting. Get your experience doing it and learning how to do it, so that when you're ready to deploy it and you have your first employee, you don't do what I did and look across the table at them and they say, well, what are we doing? You go, I don't know. You got any ideas? That was literally my business plan when I first started business. And we did some horrendous work for very little money for a while because of that. You're not going to have that experience. Let me ask you this. Driven Digital. You're a YouTube expert, okay? Just call it for what it is. You're a YouTube expert.
right.
If you were to take on a client right now, what would you tell them their expectation should be for seeing a result that they feel justifies the cost of working with you?
From what and originally, I'll kind of go back to what I thought was going to happen, right, with this doctor. I thought that like 100,000 was going to be a 5-year plan, basically, because that's typically what you see happen. It just takes a while to actually gain traction if you want to have a large audience like that, right? But working with me, I think the real value, I think, really has to come from taking that leap, understanding that you're sharing your message and your mission, and you're doing that in a way that's going to make a difference for your customers, right? Within those first few videos, it can do that. And understanding that, doing what you're doing is going to be something that's really going to drive, your purpose and your mission and your vision forward. Ultimately, to me, YouTube is the best way to find and connect with customers because of how powerful it is when you answer those questions for your customers. They can go right in to the search results that people are already typing in YouTube.
Mm-hmm. It's a
right?
search engine.
It's a search engine, which people don't really understand that kind of aspect to it, right? People just think there's just cat videos and like funny videos and people go there just to do that. But going back to construction and like even like plumbers and electricians, right? You can answer those common questions that your customers have that they're already typing in to fix, and you can be the one that they find.
Yeah.
Right. And even just not organically on YouTube, like going in the search engine there, you can use those videos on social media and use them in your email lists and connect with your customers that you have now that you already have, right? So there's a big impact that it has, more than just going back to just worrying about YouTube and getting 1,000 subscribers and monetizing and all that stuff. There's so much more to it than that people don't realize as far as the impact that it has on a business.
Do you think that 6 months is a good mark? Do you think 1 year is a good mark? Like, what is the expectation that you would set with somebody that says, look, I know that you can do what you do. It's apparent you can do what you do. I want to do it. I'm starting from scratch. Yes, I have a website, but I don't have any YouTube video presence. And I want to hire you because I want to get more people with eyeballs on what I do. What would you give them as a fair time frame? Because I think people aren't honest about this, man.
Yeah, I would say a year.
Yeah.
Right? Like you should be seeing some kind of traction within a year. Right? And to go back to another point, which I think when you're kind of doing it on your own and you don't understand the platform and what's happening, and a lot of people, when they just do it on their own, they don't realize, like, if you're not getting traction within a year, you're probably doing the same things over and over again that are not working. Going back to, right, just mindset, right?
Yeah.
If you get stuck doing the same thing over and over again and that's a big whole thing with YouTube as well, is understanding that there's a whole, you can make videos and do stuff, but you have to analyze and figure out what you need to improve. If you don't do that and you don't figure out what is wrong and you just keep doing the same thing, you're never going to grow. But if you do try different things, do different messaging, do different questions and hit different topics and keywords. If you try all those things, like within a year, something is going to happen, right? That's what I've seen with who I've worked with and just the platform in general.
It makes sense. And it's also, kind of part of life. Like, keep doing the same thing you've always done, you're going to get what you've always gotten. And it's insanity to think that you won't. But here's the trouble: when you don't know any better, you're just as liable to fall for anything. As an example, I sent you that ad, that email that I got yesterday about YouTube, and was just going back and forth with you about it. And it was deceptive, manipulative. And I sent it to you because of what they were saying. And you're like, yeah, I don't want anything to do with that. I don't think I have to do that in order to make the results happen. I was like, it's not about that, Timmy. But I wanted you to see it. It's not that I don't know that it's out there, but what it is sensationalizing So as an entrepreneur, like I've been in digital media for a long time now, so I get it. But there were years when we can break the code. We can get you thousands of people. We can get you. And what business owner doesn't see dollar bills at the end of that?
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm making that, that person allowed a little bit of dopamine rush to hit when I read it, because they're hitting all the pain points and they're promising a solution. And all I have to do is put another $3,000 down and they're going to do it for me. And to which your answer immediately was like, nope, that's not how that works. And I think it's black hat, gray hat. It's definitely not white hat. And I think the messaging is manipulative too. You're right. That's why people like you need to be on YouTube telling people the truth. It's why I'm asking you these questions on this podcast, because as a business owner, look, just tell me the truth. Let me make an educated decision. I might have enough money to withstand a year with no result with you. I might be in a more immediate need, which doesn't mean that you're not valuable. It just might mean I can't afford those resources without a better result. So when people start telling each other the truth, value shows up. When value shows up, reciprocity builds. When reciprocity builds, business is done. And when business is done, we start passing around the same $100 bill to everybody. But that's a whole different conversation for a whole different time. Tim, if people wanted to get a hold of you and they wanted to have a conversation with you about what you can do for them, what would be the best way for them to find you?
So the best way to find me, I'm on Facebook and Instagram, just with my name.
Okay.
And then I have a website, dr1ven.com, which is dr1ven.com. And I have a lot of information on there. And then also I'm on YouTube with my name, Tim Bambu. So you can find me on there, and you can find helpful videos about strategies and tools that you can use in the digital world to help your digital voice.
If there was one tip that you wanted to leave with people right now, what would you share with them?
Ooh, one tip. I'd say start creating. Just start creating, because so many people, including myself, I'm going to put myself in this boat too, put off just making something happen. Just, start doing something, which becomes a real crutch. Because if you have that mindset where you're just going to do it tomorrow, or, like me, you're not good enough, nothing is going to materialize at all. So you have to, do something, get started somewhere, including doing videos and getting on camera, right? You don't even have to post them. Just stand in front of the camera and just start talking to it and go from there, right? No one's forcing you to post it, but you can definitely stand in front of the camera and then see how you do and go from there.
Done is better than perfect, everybody. And you heard it from Tim Bambu here on Build an Iconic Life First. Make sure you share it out with other people. And if you are interested in growing your digital footprint, and you also believe that YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world, you would do yourself a favor to reach out to Tim, because at the very least, he'll have an honest conversation with you and help steer you in the right direction. And who knows, you might be the next client of his that has 700,000 people watching what you do. Tim, thank you very much for coming on our show. I appreciate you and being so open and honest about what you're experiencing. And I look forward to seeing you really soon, man.
Yeah, thank you.
I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands. Strong like a tree. There's roots where I stand.
Hey, friend, if you enjoyed listening to this podcast, please leave a review and subscribe to catch future casts. If you really enjoyed this episode, make sure you share it so others can benefit from it as well. I'll see you in the trenches.
Try to catch me howling at the moon.